took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 of them were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all of the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour."
I'm not totally sure the timing, but it was about 10 years ago, and I was locking up the building, which is now generally Max's job, which I'm pretty pumped about. Locking up the building when I lived out in Florida, and it was a Wednesday night, probably around 9:30, and a brother walked up to me. His name is Manny. This is a picture of him here. Manny Hernandez Jr. Good friend of mine. I had known him for a while. I gave him a big hug. He was always one of the last people in fellowship. And I said, "Bro, I'll see you Sunday." And he said, I'll see you Sunday. And I'll describe in a moment, he had a little bit of a slurred speech and he had been crippled from a prior injury, a traumatic brain injury. And so he slowly walked to his car. I said bye to him, I locked the car up. But I didn't see him Sunday. And I haven't seen him since, because that night on his way home, his car got wrapped around a tree and he died.
Oh.
That night, about 10 years ago. You know, how you process someone's death has a lot to do with what you knew about them in life. Manny, if we're going to rewind a bit in his life, in high school, he was an all-star baseball player. He was a pitcher with aspirations to college, and probably like most young baseball players, aspirations to go pro. And perhaps he would have had a chance. I don't know. I never got to see him play. But one night, he got into a really terrible car accident. This is before the car accident that would kill him. And he would suffer a traumatic brain injury. He had to relearn how to talk, relearn how to walk. They said he never talked, he never walked, and he never drive. And he ended up doing all of those things, which happens often with disciples. Right. You often see those kind of medical miracles. You know, before his injury, Manny did not really care about God. He had grown up in and around the church that at the time we were a part of. He had loving parents, a loving family, but he just wasn't interested. It wasn't in high school. He just didn't care. And after this injury, though, it brought him a lot of clarity. Manny became one of the best disciples I ever met. Manny would go on to become a very public and very well-known and well-loved figure in the city. You'd see his face on billboards and on like trucks going by. I think you probably still can, like on buses and stuff. He became an advocate for, if you're in the back and you're struggling with the sun beating down your face, you can close the blind. I'm looking out for you, Sydney. That was a blanket way of saying, Sydney, let me help you, girl. He became an advocate for wearing your seatbelt while driving, not drinking and driving. Now, he did not, I believe what happens, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt when he got into the accident. You don't believe he was drinking. But he became an advocate for all those things, and he made an amazing impact for many years, and then one night he died. And it was almost the same exact way he got his injury, except he was wearing a seatbelt this time. I saw, up close and personal, how Manny lived those last few years of his life. I saw his renewed joy despite his crippled physicality. I saw who he chose to be. I have no doubt about the terms with which he met God. No doubt. Like, I'm not wondering, is he there? I'm like, I'll see you soon. Right? That's the language. This parable that Jaden just read, there's really one point. There's one sentence, and if you leave today with anything, it's this: are you ready to meet God? You know, the title of today's sermon is Facing God. Facing God. Sometimes in life, things are ambiguous. I have 3 children. My oldest child is in 3rd grade. This is not a picture of my child. This is just a stock photo that Sabrina found for me. You'd be like, that doesn't look like you on the left or right. And so I engage with my kids with their schoolwork. And I've always wondered, because of how bad I am at math, how long until I become irrelevant in the mathematics space for my children? And I've always thought that the line would be like 5th or 6th grade, that I would start to lose my effectiveness. I've realized, actually, I think the line is 3rd grade, which is what my son's currently in. But I don't think it's because my arithmetic is bad. There's 2 reasons. One is because multiplying fractions, no one really knows how to do that. It's so confusing. Except for if you teach and write math curriculum. There's only one person in this room that writes math curriculum, and that's Chad. And if he's honest, he barely knows. You know what I mean? I'm making that up. So 1 is that, but 2 is because how they teach math to 3rd graders now makes no sense to me at all. Back in the good old days, it was just like, you grab like a little, what are those things called?
An abacus.
An abacus. You're like, how many dots? 3. How many more? 8. You know math. Now it's like, here's a grid. It's like a crossword puzzle meets Sudoku. Wild. I know it makes sense. I know there's a reason for it. I'm sure super smart people figured it out. But it's very convoluted to me. It's very ambiguous. And at first look, it's not intuitive, in my opinion, as a non-math person.
Come on, bro.
Now, I don't want to hurt his feelings, Chad. I'm sure if I was in Chad's class, I'd be incredible at math. But I can't do it. Jesus' parables function similarly. Sometimes they're very ambiguous. They're very difficult to understand. There's a parable about Jesus being asked, should we pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus grabs a coin and gives this really cryptic answer. And there's so much context and ancient culture and so much that goes without being said in that culture, it's really hard to understand. And when you unpack it, it's like this amazing truth. But it takes a while to dig down and figure it out. Sometimes Jesus puts you into a contemplative state because he wants you to think about what this means. That is not this passage. This passage of the 10 virgins hits you like a freight train. It is exactly what you think it is. What it sounds like, you got it. That's what it is. Are you ready to meet God? It's right in your face. Jesus still wants you to contemplate, but he doesn't want you to think about what might this mean. He wants you to think about what it does mean. Right. Because we all know what it means. The 10 virgins in this passage, the virgins are bridesmaids, which represent us, right? We are those bridesmaids. The bridegroom is Jesus, of course, who's coming back. And the point is, again, are you ready to meet God? This is what Jesus is wanting you to think about, his audience to think about as he's telling this story. We do not know when we'll face God. I had no clue that Manny was going to die that night. No one did. If anything, you thought he was going to live longer than any of us because what God had brought him through. Yeah. You were maybe more shocked that it happened to him than that it happened to anybody else. One thing that's 100% true, and there's not a lot in life that's 100% true, but one thing, you will die. You know what I mean? Morbid, if you're here for the first time, it'll get a little lighter, I promise. But it will happen. Either we'll die, or Jesus will come back. But life will end. At some point, you're going to have to face what is beyond. It will happen. Jesus wants to keep bringing you to that point. There's a lot of context for this verse. You don't need very much context to understand what it means, but a little that might be helpful is these bridesmaids all had oil lamps. And so oil lamps, the wick of an oil lamp lasted about 15 minutes before the light went out. The light went out. And the life, I guess. Before light went out. And so it's like a candle that would burn for 15 minutes. And when you think about that, and you realize when Jesus is telling the story, the one thing that goes without being said in that culture that we miss is that the decision to not bring extra oil for those 5 bridesmaids was insane, absurd to the point of being insane. You would never have done that. It's like bringing a flashlight with no batteries. Like the chances of the groom coming in the 15-minute window without any GPS or phone, it's not like I'm on my way, you know what I mean? You're better get there early and get ready to wait. It made no sense for them to make this decision. And you're supposed to, when you read it, you're supposed to think, what in the world were they thinking? And that's why Jesus calls them foolish. He says, what a foolish decision that no normal thinking person would make. It's absurdly irresponsible. That makes a little more sense when you look at the groom's reaction. Did you catch it? Wow. He says, I never knew you. It's like, wow. That's super, but you did though, right? You know what I mean? Like, you did know them. They were bridesmaids in your wedding. He shuts the door in their face. Why does he do that? Jesus is trying to make a point, as he does in the parables, right? This is hyperbole. This parable is not about understanding God's character. It's about understanding your responsibility in your relationship with God. When Jesus closes the door, metaphorically, he's saying is that their inability or unwillingness to think carefully about how their actions now would impact their future would be the death of them. Matthew 7 says something similar. It's a brutal passage. It's one of those passages that you're like, I mean, it wouldn't be terrible if this wasn't there. You know what I mean? This is like, if you open your Bible randomly, have you ever done that? Like, I don't know what to read, random, and it's like this terrible prophecy against Egypt, like, blows, you know, like, that was terrible. This is one of the ones that if you open randomly, you're like, oh, like, I don't know. He says, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and your name drive out demons, in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, evildoer. Wow. So strong. The context before this, these people were performing miracles and driving out demons. And Jesus was like, I never knew you. What is that all about? This is the truth Jesus is trying to teach us both in this passage and in the parable, that many people have gotten so good at excusing their own actions and hiding behind their self-righteousness that we believe that we're saved when we're not. It's a brutal truth, but it is a truth. Repeated over and over in the scriptures, we are called to evaluate our faith. Many harbor a false, unjustified hope in our status with God. It will be a terrible awakening when those of us in that place meet God. Knowing God and being known by Him is all about a relationship with Him that's healthy. Notice how in both passages He says, I never knew you. Right. It's relational. It's deeply relational. Yeah. So, the question then is, do you have an authentic relationship with God? Right? That's the question. But here's the thing. It's kind of like in math, to go back, well, I'll go to chemistry. If you want to take organic chemistry, you're a psycho. But if you want to do it, you have to do something before that. You have to take regular chemistry. You can't just skip to orgo. That's what the cool kids call it. You can't just skip to that. There is a prerequisite to that. Before you can honestly ask the question, do I have an authentic relationship with God? Am I known by Him? There's a prerequisite question. It's this one. Before you can have an authentic relationship, you must develop an honest relationship with yourself. Wow. You can't ask, am I close to God, unless you learn, do I know myself? Am I honest with myself? Am I authentic? You can't be inauthentic and be close to God. You're inauthentic and you think you're close to God. It's kind of like the people, well, this has been me sometimes. There have been times I felt really close to somebody and I discovered they did not feel as close to me. That's a brutal truth too. You're my best friend. You're also my regular friend. You're like, oh. I misread that situation. You know, that can happen. This happens with us and God. Who are you when no one is watching you? That's who you are. In the privacy of your mind, what are you thinking? What are you saying? What do you really believe? What are you really like? How much do you care about God's commands? And how much do you care about conformity? Right? Zach, I so appreciated Zach sharing. This is what he talked about. Conformity sort of overrode his priority of being close to God, so it led him to living this kind of false double life. We can live in comfortable self-imposed blindness. We ignore truths about ourselves that we're too fragile to acknowledge. From bad breath to bad character. Sometimes we don't know ourselves. We carry false assumptions about ourselves. We lack the awareness that we need to be close to God because we don't know who we are. And so we can't confess to God or to people. Perhaps you've had the experience where you thought you did a good thing, but you know you were just blinding yourself to the truth. This mug represents that very thing. This is a very sweet Mother's Day mug. Perhaps some of you moms in there would be very pleased to get this on Mother's Day. You might think my wife would want this mug. But if you think that, you don't really know my wife. She has no interest in this mug. But on Mother's Day this year, I had plans. to get her flowers. And, you don't just go get flowers at Meijer. You go to Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
That's right.
Pro tip. You get twice the quality, twice the quantities, half the price.
Amen.
It's the move. But it's about 11.5-minute drive for me, which could become 20 minutes if I had traffic. So I was driving home one night, and I had been gone most of the day, so I needed to get home and help with the kids. And I was like, oh, Mother's Day tomorrow. I can't go out tonight if she's going to be surprised by something I bring back. I can't be like, I gotta go. She's going to be like, you just leave me these 3 kids. Like, that doesn't work when you have kids. You can't be like, see you soon, like, where are you going? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I'll run the errand for you. You stay here.
Right.
So I had to get it before I went home, but I was limited on time. So I made the just devastating decision of stopping at a local florist. Now, if you're not reacting to that, it's because you've never bought from a florist.
Yeah.
You don't know. Now they're like, oh, you can pay in gold or platinum. It's going to cost you this month's rent for that 12 rows. So I went, and it was brutal. I was walking around, but now I had committed. Like, I had gone in this weird intersection. I had parked. I was inside. Like, I can't leave. You know what I mean? Like, you can't make that decision. I've gone too far. So I'm walking around, and I see this mug. And my heart knows, Kyle, you've been married for 13 years. You have 3 children. That's not the right mug. Like, you know that. But I panicked. I didn't want to inconvenience myself, so I was like, no, it's a good. She's gonna love it. It was filled with this bouquet that like wasn't that great. It was 47. Still to this day, I think of where our family could be if I didn't make that choice. I hit my head pretty hard on that mic. So I deserved it though. So I bring this thing home, and as soon as it's at the table, I'm like, no turning back. It's good. You did good. You did good. But like the guy on my shoulder's like, it's not good. Like, So she gets it and she says all the right things. She's like, oh, thanks, hon. This is great. And I wrote a good card, so I saved myself. And it was flowers, But I was like, please don't ask me how much they cost. Because she'd be like, why don't you just give me a gift card? And I'd be like, that would have been better, And so, like 2 months later, it was just about a month ago, we were at dinner with some friends, and it came up. Gifts for spouses. And I very confidently said, I think it's been a while since I botched a gift. It's like the most recent gift I gave her I botched. And she goes, oh. I was like, what do you mean? What was that? There's like people there, but I'm like, let's get into it right now, And people were like, I gotta go to the bathroom, It's like, I was like, why did you say that? And she's like, well, do you remember? It's not a big deal. I'm like, wait, you have to tell me now. You can't do that. He's like, well, I'm like, just say it. I can take it. She's like, that mug is terrible. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. It was such a bad decision. I knew it was bad. But I didn't want to inconvenience myself. I didn't want to do the thing I knew I needed to do that would have been the best thing I could have done. Yeah. Perhaps you know where I'm going. We do this all the time in our relationship with God.
Yeah.
So often. There are so many of us that either have come out of or currently in this space where you're not where you need to be with God. You know it. It's probably why you're here. But you won't do the thing you need to do because you can't foretell that. You can't think about that consequence. You're not there yet. What's missing is just that bottom level humility. Just that lowest level, like, what do I need to do to be right with God? Some of us were so afraid to ask that question because what would it mean for my past? It would just mean that God was always leading you to this point and beyond. You have to be willing to ask those questions. Why is it so hard to ask that question? I think Dr. Kubler-Ross has a great answer. In her famous book of Grief and Death, she says, it is the denial of death that is partially responsible for people living empty, purposeless lives. For when you live as if you live forever, it becomes too easy to postpone the things you know that you must do. Yeah. When you think life will never end, you never do what you need to do right now. Yeah. You don't do it. In her estimation, her idea in her book is that much of the human race have become masters at denying the very existence of death. Now this seems wild, but if you're afraid of what happens after, it's actually very convenient. It allows you to live how you want. The thought of dying and the unknown that follows for most people is so terrifying it's easier to live in blissful, keyword, self-imposed ignorance. Because we give into this illusion, we start caring about things that we have no business caring about. We start to care about our wealth and success more than how many souls we're impacting in this life. We care more about our careers than that poor person on the side of the road. We care more about our physical well-being and our luxury and comfort than our spiritual reality. We care more about our comfort and less about having a radical faith. Our culture pushes away thinking about the afterlife with abandon. The atheist says, who cares? Nothing happens after life anyway. Enjoy life, be a hedonist, seek pleasure. Many Eastern religions say, well, you're going to get another shot when you reincarnate, so be the best you can, and you'll get to keep going until you reach enlightenment. The agnostic says, well, I don't know and I don't care enough to find out. And perhaps the biggest hit in our culture is many people who claim Christianity but don't really follow Jesus, as Jesus tells in Matthew 7. Pump us full of false hope. Be a good person. Do your best. God gets it. And by do your best, they don't really mean do your absolute best to be righteous. It means do the best within the standard you set for yourself of morality. Yeah. And you'll be fine. The irony of that is that in that umbrella, almost everybody figures it out. But what you realize when you read the scriptures is that a radical faith requires a whole nother level of living righteousness and holiness.
Right.
Yeah.
The martyrs of Sebastian. This is a really, really powerful story. The martyrs of Sebastian were 40 Roman soldiers in about 300 AD who were told by the emperor of the time, you need to renounce your faith or you'll be killed for your faith. And we're going to kill you by throwing you in this frozen lake so you freeze slowly to death. And after a certain number of hours you're not dead yet, we're going to burn you alive. It's like, all right, wow, like that's a lot. So, to a man, all 40 would not denounce Jesus. So they stripped them naked and put them in this lake. And after some time in the lake, one man got out of the lake because the general had set up a warm bath on the shore. And he said, all you have to do is step into this bath and you'll be saying you want to live. You want to renounce your faith. 39 stayed in the water. One got out. And history says, 1,700 years ago, not super reliable data. It's hard to know exactly what happened, but most stories corroborate this. That when that one man put his foot in that warm water, he died on the spot. And the guard that was guarding them immediately became a Christian. He was like, well, he stripped down naked on his own volition and got into the lake.
Whoa.
The 40 martyrs of Sebastian. Why am I telling you this story? This is why. In that time, the fires of persecution were a crucible for the purification of the church. A crucible is a thing that you pour molten metal in that separates them, purifies them. In the early church, or in places present day that are hotly persecuted for believing that Jesus is the Christ, when you choose to be baptized, when you choose to follow Jesus, today, Eduardo's going to get baptized. Eddie, can you stand up? I know you don't want to. Because you're being baptized today, we're going to overlook the jersey you're wearing. Pittsburgh Steelers jersey. I don't take offense, you're my brother. The fires of persecution, when you chose that decision that he's making today, what you were saying was, I'm willing to die. Because the powers that be will kill me if they find out. Now, that severely whittles down your candidate pool. Does it not? How many people in the average church would still be in that church if that was in effect in society? Persecution, while it did hinder the growth of the church, it also purified the church. Yeah. What happens when you live in a culture that is not very persecuted? Christians receive persecution, but not at the level we're talking about. What happens then? It's very easy to slip into apathy. Yeah. Especially about what's coming next. When you knew you could die at any moment, Jesus coming back was like everyday living. Yeah. Look, could be today, could be tomorrow. But in our life, we can't even imagine that. Sometimes that's a problem, because we slip into apathy and into comfort. Do you ever get hit randomly with just the idea that, I could die today? Have you ever felt that before?
Yeah.
There's a time, I don't know when it was, I'm driving down the highway. I looked away for like a hot second, like an appropriate amount of time to look away on the highway. I'm talking like 0.3 seconds. And I turned around and the car in front of me had stopped. I was going 70 in a 70, so I was doing pretty good. I was going 90, you know what I mean? And I mean, I slammed the brakes, my car swerved, made the screech tire, kind of started to drift. I kind of like had to kind of sneak around. Then the car stopped. You know that feeling your heart's beating a million miles an hour? You had that before? And you start to think, whoa, I could have died. Whoa, what would happen to my family? Like, whoa, you know what I mean? You start, but one thing that's true, it does induce anxiety sometimes. I'm not trying to induce that in you. But when I think about my death, I think really clearly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm not caring about when I almost ran into that car at 70? Dinner that night.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about the stress from that weird relationship that I can't figure out how to say that thing I need to say. I'm not thinking about like the way my boss is giving me weird looks at work even though I've done nothing wrong. And I'm not thinking about the dysfunction in this or that or the weird stuff or that. I'm just thinking about, man, like, am I ready? Am I ready? Am I good? You know what I mean? Like, like a minister of a church. And I'm up, I'm like, am I good? Like, Jesus, am I good? You know what I mean? Like, I'm asking all my friends, like, do you think I'm good? You know what I mean? Like, and you're not supposed to live in that anxiety. You're supposed to be confident. But where is your confidence coming from?
Right.
Is it from biblical truth? Or just kind of the morality that you set as your standard that makes you feel good?
Great question.
You can't live that way. Can't help but wonder if some of us in this room right now could use a little clarity.
Come on, brother.
Are you living like you're thinking about the next life? I will close with two thoughts and a quote. I want to give a thought to those that are following Jesus now. Perhaps you're a member of this church. Perhaps you're just visiting but you've been following Jesus for some time. I want to give you this. If this is true, which we believe it is, if the road is narrow and a lot of people won't find it, if a lot of people are operating under a delusion and they don't even realize they're in it anymore, do you live like you care about that?
Yeah.
Like, is your everyday life one that I would expect that if God put a seeker in your path, someone who's looking for Jesus, is he going to direct people to you because he knows you're going to say something?
Yeah.
Or does he avoid you because he's like, it's silence over there, it's a dead zone? Or obviously I'm talking about your evangelism. I've said this many times and I'll keep saying it. No one has like ever been argued into great faith in Jesus. Like, no one's story that comes up here is like, well, I just got into a really hot debate with Dylan. And I was afraid of him because he could carry 7 chairs at once. And I just decided I'm going to